Japan's population is shrinking rapidly, and the phrase erasing itself from the world map is dramatic, but not entirely inaccurate. Honestly, it sounds like something a villain in a Bond movie would say right before unveiling a giant space laser. Mr. Bond, soon Japan will be nothing but a memory, and a chain of moderately priced sushi restaurants I own in Scunthorpe. But this isn't fiction. This is a very real, very quiet demographic implosion. A country known for its bustling cities and technological marvels is facing a future with fewer and fewer people to inhabit them. It's a slow-motion crisis, a national story written not in exclamation points, but in empty schoolyards and silent villages. So, what's going on? How does one of the world's most advanced economies find itself on a path toward demographic oblivion? It's not a single simple answer. It's a complex cocktail of social pressures, economic realities, and deeply ingrained cultural norms that have conspired to create a perfect storm of population decline. Think of it like a Jenga tower, where multiple crucial blocks have been pulled out at once, and the whole structure is starting to wobble precariously. It's a fascinating, if deeply worrying situation. And the clock is ticking, loudly. Every year the numbers get starker, the headlines more alarming, and the challenge more immense. We're going to unpack this piece by piece because this isn't just a story about statistics. It's a story about people, culture, and the future of a nation at a critical crossroads. Here's why it's happening. A falling birth rate, a rapidly aging society, a punishing work culture, a reluctance to embrace immigration, and the hollowing out of its countryside. It's a lot, so buckle up. Let's start with the most fundamental part of this problem, babies, or more accurately, the lack thereof. To maintain a stable population, a country needs a fertility rate of about 2.1 children per woman. That's the magic replacement rate. Japan's current fertility rate is hovering around a stark 1.26. That's not just below the replacement rate, it's practically limboing under it. For every 10 people, the next generation will only have about 6 to replace them. This isn't just a dip, it's a demographic cliff dive, and the country forgot to pack a parachute, or really any new people at all. So why aren't people having more kids? Well, for one, it's fantastically expensive. Raising a child in Japan, particularly in the major cities where most people live, is a massive financial undertaking. And we're not just talking about the cost of diapers and anime figurines. We're talking about education, healthcare, and the simple, crushing cost of housing. Apartments are famously small, and the idea of finding space for another human being can seem less like a joyous life event, and more like a logistical nightmare on par with trying to assemble IKEA furniture in a phone booth. It's hard to plan for a family when your living room is also your dining room, your bedroom, and your home office. On top of that, there's a growing trend of delaying or foregoing marriage altogether, which is still the primary context for childbirth in Japan. The societal pressure cooker is intense, and many young people are choosing to focus on their careers or simply enjoy their independence rather than enter a traditional family structure. And even for those who do want children, the support system can be shockingly inadequate. Childcare is often scarce and prohibitively expensive, creating a massive barrier for working parents. It's a system that frankly seems less designed to support families and more to gently suggest, "Are you about this? Have you considered a nice bonsai tree instead?" While the number of newborns is plummeting, the other end of the age spectrum is absolutely booming. Welcome to the Silver Tsunami, a term that sounds like a retirement community's water park, but is actually a demographic crisis of epic proportions. Nearly 30% of Japan's population is over the age of 65. That is the highest proportion in the entire world. To put that in perspective, every year Japan is essentially adding a city's worth of senior citizens while losing a city's worth of everyone else. The country is aging so fast its national bird might as well be a silver-haired crane complaining about the youth of today. This imbalance creates an incredible strain on the entire social fabric. The most obvious pressure point is the healthcare system. An older population naturally requires more medical care, more hospital beds, and more long-term support. But who is going to provide that care? The number of young people entering the workforce, especially in caregiving professions, is shrinking. It's a mathematical nightmare, skyrocketing demand for services met with a dwindling supply of people to provide them. It's like throwing a massive party and realizing you've only hired one bartender and he's also your grandpa. Then there's the economic fallout. Japan's national pension system is a pay-as-you-go model, meaning today's workers pay for today's retirees. But when you have fewer and fewer workers supporting a rapidly growing number of retirees, the system starts to look less like a safety net and more like a Ponzi scheme on the verge of collapse. The government is facing an impossible choice. Either cut benefits for the elderly, drastically raise taxes on the young, or somehow conjure a million new taxpayers out of thin air. It's a generational tug of war where, tragically, everyone is at risk of losing. At the heart of Japan's demographic woes is its infamous work culture. The concept of karoshi, or death from overwork, isn't just a dramatic headline, it's a recognized social phenomenon. The expectation is not just to work hard, but to show complete and utter devotion to your company. This often means brutally long hours, unpaid overtime, and a social life that's secondary to corporate loyalty. Employees are expected to stay late, not because there's work to be done, but simply to show they are more committed than the person at the next desk. It's a culture that essentially asks you to marry your job, and that doesn't leave much time, energy, or desire to start a family. This punishing environment hits women particularly hard. There is still a pervasive and deeply ingrained societal expectation that women should leave the workforce once they have children. The term matahara, or maternity harassment, describes the pressure, both subtle and overt, that pregnant women and new mothers face in the workplace. They might be demoted, moved to less important roles, or subtly encouraged to resign. This forces an impossible choice on many women. Sacrifice your career for a family, or sacrifice a family for your career. It's an archaic, lose-lose proposition straight out of the 1950s. Consequently, many women are deciding to opt out of this rigged game. They are pursuing their careers, achieving financial independence, and choosing not to have children within a system that penalizes them for it. And frankly, can you blame them? When society presents you with a choice between personal fulfillment and motherhood, it's no surprise that the birth rate suffers. The social expectations surrounding motherhood remain incredibly demanding, that mothers must be the primary, all-sacrificing caregiver, while the professional landscape actively punishes them for fulfilling that very role. It's a cruel paradox that lies at the very core of this crisis. While Tokyo and Osaka remain vibrant, sprawling megacities, a different story is unfolding in Japan's countryside. A mass exodus of young people has been underway for decades, as they leave their rural hometowns in search of education and better job opportunities in the urban centers. This has created a vacuum, leaving behind aging populations and, increasingly, empty towns. We're talking about entire villages where the average age is over 70, and the local school has been closed for years, because there are simply no children left to attend it. It's a hollowing out of the nation's heartland. This phenomenon has given rise to the akiya, or abandoned houses. There are millions of these empty homes scattered across Japan, falling into disrepair because their owners have passed away or moved away with no heirs interested in taking over the property. Some local governments are now literally giving these houses away for free or for a pittance, just to get someone, anyone, to move in and stop the decay. It's a surreal real estate market, where the supply so vastly outstrips the demand that property becomes a liability. These aren't just empty houses, they are monuments to a vanishing way of life. The situation has become so stark in some areas that there are now officially more registered pets than children under the age of 15. Think about that for a moment. More poodles than toddlers, more Shiba Inus than school children. It's a cute statistic that masks a profoundly sad reality. These aren't just sleepy towns, they're becoming ghost towns, where the only sounds are the wind whistling through empty streets and the distant bark of a dog. This isn't just about population numbers, it's about the loss of community, tradition, and the very soul of rural Japan. Now, an obvious solution to a shrinking population might seem to be, well, getting new people from somewhere else. Immigration has been the demographic lifeblood of many Western nations, but Japan has historically been, to put it mildly, reluctant. For centuries, the country has been defined by its cultural and ethnic homogeneity, and there is a deep-seated resistance to the idea of mass immigration. This isn't necessarily about malice, but about a powerful desire to preserve a unique cultural identity and social harmony, or wa. But that desire is now clashing head-on with demographic reality. While the government has made some recent tentative steps to open the door a little wider, particularly for specified skilled workers, the numbers are a drop in the ocean compared to what is needed. The policies are often complex, the visas temporary, and the path to permanent residency or citizenship is notoriously difficult. Japan is asking people to come help solve its labor shortage, but it's not exactly rolling out the welcome mat. It's more like leaving the door cracked open with a chain on it, and asking visitors to please wipe their feet and not touch anything. Furthermore, immigrants who do make it to Japan face significant hurdles. The language barrier is immense, and social integration can be incredibly challenging in a society that is not accustomed to diversity. Reports of discrimination in housing and employment are not uncommon. The result is that Japan remains one of the least diverse developed countries in the world, with a foreign-born population of less than 3%. It's a cultural and political choice that has profound economic consequences, leaving the country to face its demographic winter largely on its own, stubbornly guarding a house that is slowly emptying out. So let's look at the cold hard numbers because they paint a truly startling picture of the future. Japan's population reached its peak back in 2010 at around 128 million people. Ever since then, it has been on a steady, relentless decline. As of today, the population has already fallen to around 123 million. That's a loss of 5 million people in just over a decade, the equivalent of the entire population of New Zealand or Ireland simply vanishing. And the projections show this is just the beginning of the slide. If the current trends of low birth rates and minimal immigration continue, the numbers get even more dramatic. Projections from Japan's own National Institute of Population and Social Security Research are not optimistic. They estimate that the population will fall below the 100 million mark by 2058. This is a huge psychological and economic milestone. It's like watching your national odometer roll backward. The decline is predicted to accelerate from there, creating a demographic doom loop where a smaller population leads to a weaker economy, which in turn makes it even harder to support families, further depressing the birth rate. And looking further into the future, the picture is truly apocalyptic. By the year 2100, Japan's population could plummet to as low as 60 million people. That would be less than half of its peak population, a demographic collapse on a scale rarely seen in a developed nation during peacetime. Imagine the Japan of today, its cities, its infrastructure, its cultural footprint, but with only half the people. It's a future of empty apartment buildings, silent train stations, and a nation struggling to maintain its place in the world. This isn't a distant, abstract problem. It's a countdown happening in plain sight. So where does this leave Japan? The consequences of this demographic shift are profound and far-reaching. Consequences include labor shortages, a shrinking economy, loss of cultural heritage, and declining global influence. Fewer workers mean less innovation and lower GDP. A smaller tax base struggles to support a growing elderly population. Ancient traditions and local festivals, passed down for generations, are at risk of disappearing as the villages that practice them empty out. On the world stage, a nation with a dwindling population and a strained economy will inevitably see its power and influence diminish. The Japanese government is, of course, aware of this slow-burning existential threat. They are not simply standing by and watching their country fade away. They are trying to reverse the trend with incentives, reforms, and technology. There are cash bonuses for having children, expansions in childcare services, and pushes for more flexible work arrangements. There's also a massive investment in robotics and AI, not just for industry, but to potentially care for the elderly in the future. A solution that is both brilliantly innovative and slightly terrifying. But despite these efforts, the fundamental trends have not yet been reversed. The cultural and economic forces driving this crisis are powerful and deeply entrenched. It's like trying to turn a massive cargo ship around with a single paddle. The question is whether these solutions are too little, too late, or if they can gain traction before the demographic momentum becomes truly irreversible. The fate of one of the world's great nations hangs in the balance. Japan is trying to reverse the trend with incentives, reforms, and technology, but so far the population keeps shrinking.